Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And boy, we're sweating it out over here. Talk about sweating to the oldies. Boy, it's been in the night. We hit 100 in Boston for the first time in 60 years, I think.
Really? We didn't hit 100 up here. I think we hit 93 or 94, but it's been, humid as anything.
Yeah, and then you were nice enough to send those thunderstorms that you had down my way yesterday.
As we're taping this on a Thursday, we had huge thunderstorms roll through about 2 o'clock up where we are, and you had them roll through about, 6?
6 or 7. Yeah, they were nasty. Yeah, they were really bad. But, it went from 95 when the storm rolled in, and when the storm left, it was 75. It dropped 20 degrees.
It dropped about 20 degrees. It is like 68 degrees here today. The bedroom where the studio is 74 degrees. It is so comfortable. And we were supposed to get soaked tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll take more of the rain, save my lawn a little bit. But anyway, this is 95, episode 95 of
it's the Interstate episode, or Richard Dent.
Okay, yeah, either one. As actually, Route 95 might not be a bad thing to talk about because we're going to be talking about directions today. Can't get there from here, Ron.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
No matter how much you try.
The variety of directions that comes with our games. There's no GPS for the PDF.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about directions in our games, things we like about them, things we don't like. Sometimes it can be a real mess, and sometimes whatever. But we'll get into that in our main topic. But first off, you know what time it is.
Well, how do we get a hold of us first?
Oh, see, you're paying attention. I like that. You're paying attention.
Yeah, almost 2 years of this. You don't think I know what the routine is now?
Hey, our website is digitaltodice.com. That's where we park all the podcasts over on Spreaker. 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. That is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com. is the way you can email the show, and over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digital2dice. And if you want to get some cool merchandise here for the summer, head over to cafepress.com/digital2dice as well. And so we got a nice text on the text line. I thought I'd read off right on the start of the show from the,
go right ahead.
From the 321 area code. It's a great podcast and enjoying the collaboration on the hockey playoff project.
In a few minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so myself, Ron, and Al, Red Sox fan, are collaborating on the 77-78 hockey playoffs. He goes on to say, when you get to the Stanley Cup, maybe you should split the games amongst yourselves. And Al, Red Sox fan, keep it up. So I was like, yeah, so I just said thanks. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. That he texted us here. And he goes on to say, I found you guys on YouTube last year as I broke out my 90s strat for football and hockey as he was out of work. Wow. Like we all were last year, pretty much. He goes, playing Madden 19 was glitchy, and I kept telling myself I had a quality board game without all the glitches and button configurations. And honestly, that's how I come over to...
I was about to say, you sure you didn't comment to yourself?
Yeah, I could have wrote that exact comment in myself.
Exactly.
Because that's how I come over. I got frustrated. Actually, it was Madden. I failed the Madden tutorial, and I said, this has passed me by. It's just, I don't have enough fingers. I just can't do it at my age. It's not meant for me. I was the 1-2 button guy. That's all I needed. And even the basketball game, there's 17 buttons you got to press to take a shot. Fade away shot, go to the basket, go out of the basket, jump around, turn around, jump, spin. No, I just want to shoot and pass. And it's not meant for the shoot and pass people anymore. Even the hockey game, same way. So it passed me by, and I went into the cards and dice. And now, not only am I having fun, but I'm playing some of my favorite seasons, which you can't do with Madden.
No, you can't.
So thanks for
was last year.
So thanks for contacting us on the dice line. It's good to hear from you. And I think he went on to say that he picked up shootout hockey, too. So I was like, ooh, that's
cool.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, it's a fun game, shootout hockey.
So the pusher continues to push. If you're listening or know of some people in the Lethbridge, Alberta area, there is now a red Ford Explorer with a logo from my channel on the back of it.
I think I saw that. I saw it say stunned. Retro, but then I looked closer. It did say Retro Sports Network.
Yeah.
So either that or you are plagiarizing and copywriting to such a point that I don't want to know you anymore.
Thanks.
Imagine that. Imagine if there was like a retro sports company out there with the exact same logo and you just kind of stole it by mistake.
stranger things have happened.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. It's an alternate timeline. I love watching those videos on YouTube, by the way, the alternate timeline stuff. My head starts spinning.
Fun.
They are
Those
fun. You know, I saw something on Schrodinger's cat the other day. I'm like, I watched like 3 minutes of it. I was like, okay, my head hurts. So I'm going to go play something on my table. I'm going to play baseball.
So, yeah, I know you're watching Manifest right now. Is that on Netflix or which streaming service?
I guess the first 2 seasons are on Netflix, and the 3rd season's on Hulu, and the 4th season just got canceled. But the creator of the show and the actors want to give it a proper ending, so to speak. Manifest, if you haven't not familiar with the show Manifest, it's about a plane that takes off. I think it took off in 2013 from Jamaica coming back to New York, and it disappeared. It just up and vanished. And 5.5 years later, it come back and it landed in New York, and you know, they're like, where you been? Pretty much, you know. But now for the passengers on the plane, it was a normal flight. They had some lightning and they landed, and you know, imagine landing on the ground and saying, where you been the last 5.5 years? You know, people had moved on. Yeah, people had.
The Red Sox winning 2 World Series.
Yeah, 2 World Series. I mean, people had moved on. People had remarried. People had passed away, and you missed all that, you know. So there's 2 twins, and one of them is, you know, 9, and the other one's now 14, and they're like, one's like way taller than the other one. It's just
That's
like
crazy.
It is. It's really weird how you would go back to normal life after that. So it's an interesting show. Me and the wife have been watching that. But anyway, turning our attention back to the gaming world, let's get into what we're playing. Take it away.
I'm on vacation, so let's see. I'm doing my part of the Dave Gardner project, and so we are through 3 games of my Islander and Blackhawk series, because I'm going to play 4 and 5 either tonight or tomorrow morning using Shootout. And the Hawks lead the Islanders 2-1.
So we've had some upsets in these series.
We have had some upsets. It didn't help that Clark Gillies got called for a spear or whatever in game 2, which caused a 5-minute major power play at the start of overtime, which the Blackhawks capitalized on, and they just beat the Islanders senseless. What was it, 3-1? Yeah, 3-1 or 3-1 in game 3. So Chicago has outplayed themselves. They lost their first round series in real life, and they're 2 wins away with 2 home games left of upsetting the Islanders.
Yeah, and get into the Final Four. Yep.
Ivan Boldarev has been the big scorer there, and Stan Mikita not making donuts quite yet. Maybe he did.
Tony Esposito's in the net, right?
Tony Esposito's had a very good series too.
Yeah.
He stopped all but 1 shot in game 3. So
Al's got the Bruins Kings, and Rogie Vachon is standing on his head in his series.
What's that series now? 2-2?
I think it's 2-2. All because of Rogie. All because of Rogie. Yep.
And so Montreal is waiting. They're either going to get we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
So, and you've got Atlanta and Philadelphia, but Philadelphia's finally restored some order.
Yeah, Atlanta's been playing well. They stole the first game in overtime in Philadelphia. Philadelphia even the series up, and then game 3 was a pivotal game 3. Atlanta won, and then in game 4, Atlanta was up by 2 goals in the third, and they choked it away. So there was two goals scored by the Flyers, and then they won in overtime. So yeah, so Atlanta's had leads in the third period. They just haven't held them. So I think it's 2-2 right now in the series. Might even be 3-2 Philly. I have to double check that. But yeah, so the Flyers are coming back. They should take that series from Atlanta.
I would think so. And let's see. I also, because I'm on vacation this week, the 49 replay is on suspension because of that, and we're waiting for the Yankees to win the American League. They've clinched a tie. They're playing the Indians. The first game back will be the Yankees and Indians, and hopefully the Yankees can wrap that up and we can focus the rest of the replay on the ongoing battle between the Cardinals and the Dodgers.
Well, while you're sitting here on vacation, right, and that product's on hold, do you ever sit here and you're sitting there like having lunch or whatever, and you're like, you know, all those people are sitting on the dugout in that Action PC game waiting for me to play another game. They're just sitting there waiting for you, like doing nothing, waiting for you to pick it up and to play that game. You ever think about those poor people in the game that are just doing nothing?
What about the 200 seasons I have worth of stuff that I don't play on a regular basis either? Between the, I have every season in baseball, I think 2 or 3 times over. So,
you kind of like feel like Men in Black when they open the locker and you look down and you see all the little villages there. You're like, hey, how's it going, guys? I'll get back to you anytime.
Can I play today, boss? Please, please, please. So that will be done in a couple weeks. I don't know, depending on how long the Dodgers and Cardinals are battling it out for. I don't know if they'll just zoom at the end of the season and get to the World Series, or we'll actually play it out, because there's really not much. That's pretty much the last thing, because the Yankees will win and the Yankees will. I like their chances in the World Series, but so that's going on. And so on vacation, I've played a ton of my fictional league in OOTP. I made myself a young second baseman and created the Canadian Baseball League. So there are 10 franchises, all in the. As we're taping this on Confederation Day, Happy Canada Day.
Are you in Division A or Division B?
I'm in the Eastern Conference, or the Eastern Division.
Oh, that one right over your head. Never mind.
Division A, yeah, or Z. It'd be Division A or Z. I'm with a Halifax. I love the computer name everything. So I'm with the Halifax Superstars. Don't ask me why that came up with that. Some of them are actually appropriate names, like Toronto or the Railroaders. And of course, Toronto's a big railroad city in Canada too. So having fun with that. And so I'm in first place, and those are fun. Those are fun.
Yeah. I get my fictional series going, a team going in there too, and I just haven't got back to it. But it is fun just to kind of go back and play once in a while.
So that's pretty much what I've been, but aside from gems, and it's been way too hot really to have much of an outside part of this vacation. Yeah, but the wife's birthday's coming up this weekend, and so we'll spend some time together. And,
nice. So what seasons you gonna get her?
Well, she specifically.
Are you gonna surprise her, or is it something she knows she's gonna get?
Oh no, she's going to be very surprised. Very surprised. Actually did my shopping for her today, and so she said, "What are you doing for me for my birthday?" And I said, "I don't know yet."
I got a really good deal at Dave Cook Sports for a couple of seasons. It just she's a special girl. She's going to get some special seasons.
She's been asking for 40s and 50s football.
I get the same thing at my house. I do.
And she really likes the Cleveland Browns from the late 40s, those AAFC teams. So I think I'm gonna get her some of those.
Yeah, we got our 25th wedding anniversary coming up this month, so I'm thinking Appa Golf for her. What do you think?
Oh, she'll love it. She'll for 25. That's silver. That's silver, and hey, clubs are a silverish color.
Hey, Payoff Pitch 1980 season's getting ready to be released. Maybe I could slide that in there in a card or something like that.
Oh,
I'm a romantic. I am a romantic.
You are so romantic. Maybe I'll slide her a 73 Strat PC season too, because that's the year she was born.
Oh, there you go.
Here you go, honey. You and Rusty Stop have fun together.
We know how to treat the ladies.
Absolutely. And for more divorce tips, please follow us.
Yeah. Over here, it's been I've been on the hockey kick over here as we get the Stanley Cup Finals going. So along with my 77-78 replay, that I'm playing all different games: Strat, App, Inside the Crease, Shootout, Strat cards and dice. I mean, if I have it, I'm playing it. Trying to think what else I played. Strat PC, Action PC. So I've been playing all. It's been fun. It's been like I say, a Calico replay. And what was funny is games 3 and 4 in Strat, and then in Inside the Crease, both were Atlanta Flame collapses and Flyer wins. It was in overtime, I think. It was funny how both engines did the same thing to me in that series.
It really doesn't matter the engine. They're also going to give you a good realistic feel of what might have happened. Yep. When Gillies got the game misconduct at the end of game 2. Like, you knew they were trouble.
Yep.
And so I'm not surprised that Chicago won game 3. But just because they do the job and they tell a story. I mean, we've talked a lot about storytelling, but these games tell a story.
I think I had back-to-back games where Atlanta had a breakaway, could have won the game, and they failed. And Philadelphia got a breakaway and scored to win it. And that happened in back-to-back games where the Flames had the first breakaway, couldn't score, and the Flyers got the second breakaway, did score. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. I'm also playing in shootout hockey. I'm pre-playing the Stanley Cup Finals the day of the game.
Your games are much better than the first two that
Yeah, I had, and so I'm using Shootout Hockey. Actually, I replayed it in Shootout EZ. I think I might have already talked about that. And the Lightning won that series 5-1 in Shootout EZ. Now what I'm doing is on the day of the game, so that would have been Monday and Wednesday so far. In that afternoon or morning, I play the full game of Shootout Hockey with Montreal and Tampa Bay. And Montreal actually snuck out Game 1. They fell behind 2-0, ended up winning 4-2 with an empty net goal at the end. And then in Game 2, what a thriller it was. Tampa Bay scores with 2 minutes to play. Montreal ties it with the goalie out. We go to overtime. We go to double overtime, and Tampa pulls out the double overtime win in Game 2. So the series is tied 1-1, heading back to Montreal in my replay. So with Shootout Hockey. So that's what I'm doing. And I invited other people to do that too. If you have the 2021 season, actually it could be any game. It doesn't have to be Shootout. If you have the 2021 season in any other game, play along. Just what are your results? I'm interested to see how everybody does with their game results compared to the actual Stanley Cup Finals. And that might be something I might try to do every year going forward.
That'd be fun.
That'd be kind of a fun. It's a fun product, almost like a group product. Hey, let's all kind of play and see what our results are and compare our results and talk about things. So.
I think Tampa wins that series in real life in 5. I think Montreal sneaks out Game 3 and that's it.
They'll win a game up in Montreal. Yeah,
they've looked tired in the third period of the first.
They've been playing way above their heads. You got to give them a lot of credit for getting there, but Tampa is a machine.
Tampa is a machine, and I give Montreal full credit for even getting this far.
Yeah, I do too.
Be curious to see what they do next year. A little confidence. I was surprised because I looked it up because I consider them to be a pretty, their core is pretty young. But they're older than league average. Their average is 29 years old almost.
Really?
And the league average is 28-1. Now, like I said, the core of their team is very young. And Caulfield is going to be a superstar when all is said and done. But, give Tampa their due. They're a good team. I want to know how the heck they finished third in their division because...
Yeah.
But, Tampa was made for playoff hockey. And, boy, does that show.
Yeah, they're just a strong, strong team. So that's all I've been playing. I'm enjoying this hockey project, but I also want to get it done because I want to move on to some summer things like golf and baseball and take a break from the hockey for a bit. But that'll be coming up after the product. We got, like I say, we're whittling it down. Each round is less games because there's less teams at this point here. So
yeah, we're going down to 2 series after this.
Yep. So anyways, all right. So should we get on to the topic of the day?
Yes, my cat seems to be interested in it. I should explain, since it's audio, not video, that the cat walked into my screenshot as soon as Dave says, "Are you ready?" And
Emily likes to get on the show from time to time. She does.
Her birthday's Sunday as well. She'll be 10.
Oh boy! Oh wow!
Yeah. So anyway, yes, the topic at hand.
So what kind of brought this up is I did a video last night on my channel because there's a lot of people that have been playing Apple Hockey, and a lot of people that have been telling me that, hey, I'm new to Apple Hockey, but I'm having some problems and this and that and the other thing. So I decided last night I took some notes during the storm that was coming in, and I had a whole sheet of paper of things I wanted to talk about, and I basically just went through everything that I had a problem with in the beginning of Apple Hockey and explained how I solved it. And that got me to talking about, why couldn't the instructions spell it out like this? And then that got me and you talking about some of the other games that we've run into that's like, boy, sometimes you get a really good set of directions and you read it and you're done and you pretty much know how to play the game. And other times, boy, I tell you, you're shaking your head. You're asking people, what does this mean? What is that? How come this but not that? Why this? What is X? What is Y? And sometimes the directions can be really, really confusing or almost give a double meaning sometimes. Sometimes you can read one sentence and then read a second sentence and you're like, wow, there's 2 different ways to do this here. I'm not understanding it. So we want to talk a little bit about that today, about directions in the game. And it's almost... And we got talking about this the other day too, Ron, is that I had a friend of mine that was involved in making a movie. And he let me watch the movie, and I get done. He goes, "What do you think?" And I says, "I'm completely lost. I have no idea what was going on." And I says, what was the deal with this guy? And he says, "Oh, well, this guy did that." And I said, "Well, what's the deal with this girl?" "Oh, well, this girl did that." And I was like, well, I didn't know that. He says, yeah, we had to cut the film down. It was really long, so we cut out certain sections of the film to make it fit the hour and a half, what they wanted it to be. And I says, well, the problem is that you took away all the dialogue that got me to understand.
Everything,
yeah, that explained everything. So I said, you know it because you wrote the movie. And you acted in all those scenes that they cut out. So all the stuff that they cut out, I never saw, but you did. So I says, you didn't really explain what happened, and I'm lost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of it's in some of the games here. The same thing. It's like you read something. It's like, wow, I'm really lost. I know the guy that made the game knows what he's talking about, but can you explain it to somebody who doesn't know the game? That's brand new to it, that maybe hasn't played it before, and I think sometimes that's it's a real difficult thing. Teaching can be real difficult because the problem with teaching somebody is that you know it, and you don't know any other way. And to try to wrap your head around someone who doesn't know it, like guitar teaching. I took guitar lessons when I was younger, and I had some guys that were amazing guitar players, but they couldn't teach at all. And I had some guys that were not very good, but they showed me a heck of a lot more because they could teach. Where the other guy's like, oh, just do this. I can't do that. How do I do that? Just do this. I can't do it. And the other guy's like, let me show you how to do this. And it's a big difference.
Some of the best coaches in sports aren't the superstars because...
Tiger Woods has a golf coach. Why the heck isn't this guy on the tour? If he's teaching Tiger Woods, why isn't he out there? And I always wondered that. Well, because this guy has a gift to teach, not a gift to play the game.
Yep. He could be, he may know how to hit the driver, but can't hit it that well, or get the yips putting, because it's drive for show and putt for dough, or for a variety of different reasons. Sparky Anderson never played in the major leagues, but he's one of the best managers of all time. John Shula played a little bit, but again, his forte was coaching. Yes, you get into some that can do both. Larry Bird was a good coach. Forrest Gregg was a Hall of Famer for the Packers and got the Bengals to the Super Bowl and did well with the Browns. So it can happen, but no, that kind of goes there. To get it back, it's your game. You know how to play it. You write the directions. I proofread directions for a game. And he was very open to the suggestions that I made. So if I didn't understand something, I said, look, page 4. This is what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. And he and I went back and forth, and I was happy with what he came up with. You would almost kind of expect, though, that because there's always a ton of videos on YouTube for how to do something. But if you create a game, you should be the last person, I would think, that would be writing the directions. Teach someone else to play it, and then maybe collaborate with them, or have as many, 2 or 3 pairs of eyes on what you're writing.
Yeah.
Because as you said, what happens in any given situation. It's your game. But
explaining the ABCs about how to get there is different. And I've worked with a couple of people on games as well, and I've read the instructions and I've rewritten some things. I said, look, I would write it like this because the way this is written, it's going to open the door for a lot of questions about this. Are we talking about this guy? Are we talking about this team? Are we talking about this throughout the game? Is it just one point here? So I said, you want to clarify as much as you can in your directions, and it doesn't mean that you need to have a 40-page direction booklet here, but I mean,
you don't want to get too verbose with it, because then you lose people if you go through and turn it into legalese. Whereas if you roll a 5 and the other person rolls a 7, then
I think a good set of directions has a couple of main things. It has an index page at the beginning that you can quick flip to a certain page to get something. It also has a glossary at the end to help you find certain things. Either that or combine that with the index at the beginning. So if you want to find out about stealing bases, you can get right to that page. Okay.
Right.
If you want to, if you want to find out about in something in hockey, rebounds, you want to go right there. And because sometimes that's what you're looking for. And there's been several games, bigger games, and I'm flipping through, and it's like I kind of know what this is, but I'd like to read it for myself, and I can never find it. And people are like, oh, it's in there somewhere. Well, That's the thing. It's
Well,
in there somewhere.
some of the larger companies, their games continue to evolve. And so they might have written for something that they put in 25, 30 years ago. Well, we've now added 2 or 3 new steps to it. And so things are just kind of tacked on at the end or put in a different, that. And I think for the older companies, such as Strat and APA, I think the assumption is when those directions are written that not only, you're going to be playing with somebody, written for on a basic level for you and a buddy to learn the game together. So 2 of you are reading the directions together, or that's you're going to learn it from someone who knows how to play the game. And so when something kind of is convoluted, you know enough around it to make it worthwhile. Because there are so many different games out there now. I mean, it's not just the 2 big companies anymore. That, and there, some of them have some language issues. I mean, we play good games that are not written, the instructions are not written by native English speakers, or even there's a couple of Canadian-based games, and although we speak the same language, it is, there are words that are different. And again, back to your point, I know what it takes to make my chili. And so, a big pinch of salt, I know how to make it come out right. But if you put in too much salt, it ruins the whole everything. So, because I think I'm going to make an assumption here that most of us just play solo and try to figure out these games solo, as opposed to having the mentor, the helping hand. To go through. And there was a specific thing, and we'll just mention the game because you like the game anyway, APA Hockey, that you just could not, there was one rule you couldn't find, or
there's the way it's written, there's a lot of assuming going on, and sometimes you can find it in the rules and sometimes you can't, and sometimes people point you to a certain, it's just weird how they have their directions laid out. And I go through, read it 4, 5, 6 times. I've read that book, cover to cover so many times, and sometimes I still can't find the things in there. And sometimes you have to start at the beginning and read it all the way through to find what you're looking for. It's like I shouldn't have to. I should be an index. This is for this, and this is for that, and even Strat Hockey, which is a little bit better. I've run into issues where I can't find things. It's like you'd think it would be here, and I just want to double check what happens when I pull the goalie, or what happens when I do this. It's like, oh, where is it? It's not here. I can't find it. And it's just like, okay, so that's kind of just, it's confusing, it's frustrating, and it just, it brings the game down when you're really trying to learn it and you're trying to figure it out, or you're trying to refresh yourself. Geez, I haven't played this in a while. Let me check this. And it's like, oh man, now I got to go through the whole direction just to find that one line.
And there has to be some hand holding to a point. Because you're a good example of this. You have games for sports that you really don't follow. Basketball, baseball, for instance. And so some of that needs to be the basics of said sport. Tennis scoring, for example, is confusing if you don't follow the sport, because we start with 15 love. Well, what the hell is a love?
Right.
Well, it's a 0.
Yeah.
And then 30 love. And so you do kind of have to explain how the sport goes along before you get into the meat and potatoes of how to play said game. And for those of us who are familiar with most of the sports, it's kind of mansplaining where you sleep through it, and so you don't necessarily read the directions because I can figure this out.
Yeah, that happens a lot in hockey games, in all hockey games. It's kind of assumed what happens if there's a penalty called and then there's another penalty called, or if there's a double minor, or if there's a major. It really kind of assumes that the penalty routine. And I get that a lot for some people that are like, man, I'm confused in the penalties because I got 2 guys in the box and who comes out first. And that's almost, you almost have to know the rules of hockey to get that. Because that's, and I don't know if that's really fair to tell a game to explain the rules of a sport. How deep does a hockey game have to go to explain, the penalty procedures? They're trying to show you the game, and it's almost assumed that if there's a couple of penalties, you know what to do.
And that's where in a hockey game, where either an APA style game where it's all based on charts or on fast action cards, where most of that should be explained when you flip over the card. Possible, penalty check, possible misconduct, or possible coincidental, or something that clues you off to get you there, because we all play games differently. But
it's almost like in baseball, if you get a pop fly, is it an infield fly rule? And should a baseball game have to explain what the infield fly rule is in their instructions, or is that something that you should know as someone who's playing the baseball game?
I mean, those are some of the things that I would gloss over, but I think would be really helpful for you. Because you can't assume that everyone has the same level of knowledge over a given sport.
Yeah, but again, then we get back into are we going to make the directions 35 pages because we're explaining how to play baseball? So I mean, we got.
Or with any computer game, you spend the first 20 pages. Here's how to install it and where to install it to, and blah 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 blah. And again, you're just going to kind of gloss over it because this is the 10th version of this game I bought. I know it by heart. Just tell me what's new with it.
Now we've had some talks. Probably going back a couple of years ago now when I first started doing this stuff, and I would pull out a game and I'd try to play it, and we would sit there and go over the rules like line by line, because I couldn't figure something out, and I was like either reading too much into it or which team are we talking about here, and just how the rules were. It was a little confusing. And then when you read it, you picked right up on it and said, "Here's what I think." And it was completely different than what I thought, but you said, I can see how you would come to that conclusion by reading this.
I think some of it comes down to the fact that I've been doing these games for the better part of 30 years, so there's not much that's going to throw you off. And other times it depends on how tired you are when you pull it out. I mean, if you buy a new cards and dice game, or something that you're not familiar with, after work is not the time to be figuring this stuff out. Because you're going to be tired from work, and maybe had a drink or two at dinner time, and it's going to look like Greek to you at some point, and then you may not pull it out again. I mean, the time to be doing this is, I've got a couple hours on a Saturday where the spouse is out, the kids are over there, and I got a cup of coffee, can figure this out and try to figure it out. But again, I think it's always going to be helpful if the person that created the game sits down with someone else to write the directions, because there's going to be questions that come up, and because a lot of these are homemade, and I hate to say that, that's not in a bad way, games, people are going to find situations that you never thought of.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And so how do you resolve this?
Yeah, and again, sometimes you do have to spell it out, because when you're writing the game, you know what you're talking about, whether you're talking about a certain team or a certain player in a situation. But sometimes as you write it, it doesn't come across that way. It's like, so which one are you talking about here? Are we talking about the home team or the away team, the team at bat or the team in the field? Is it the power play team, the shorthanded team? Because just sometimes how they're written is kind of confusing. What I really like to see in a game when they have directions is some examples.
Yes.
And a lot of games do that, where it's like, here's a situation, and here's what's going to happen. Okay, let's just say player A does this and he rolls this or flips this on a card. Then you're going to do this. And so at least get you off and running and say, okay, so this is going to happen. Perfect. I like that. So now they kind of explain like a situation. And what did that really well was regular season basketball. And I'm thoroughly impressed with that, because that was right on the website, and I downloaded the instructions. I read the instructions. They were fairly simple, and I would say I picked up 80 or 90% of that game just by reading the instructions. So when I sat down to play it, I was off and running, and I was like, wow, these instructions are laid out well. There's examples of what happens. Everything was clear, and I didn't have hardly any questions at all. It was just a matter of remembering how to do a few things in the game. But that was one that was done really, really well. Marco did a great job setting up the instructions for that one there. And again, he had the examples and a whole bit, and I like that. And there's some games, and what I really like is they do, okay, here are the possible outcomes and what they mean. And I like that too. So it's a penalty or it's this or it's that, and here's what that means. And here's that's going to play out. And I really like that, too, because sometimes, they assume that you're going to know what it means. But, no, here are the possible results from this dice roll. Let's go over them one at a time. And I think even the Play.com does that for the Hockey Blast there. It really goes over, like, here's what's going to happen. And it spells it out. It's like, okay, good. I'm understanding that now. The golf game, the same way. They laid it out pretty well as to this. From what I remember with the golf game, I really didn't assume anything. It was all pretty much laid out.
Very well laid out, and game cards are like a different language. Learning how a card works. The infamous Stratomatic ground, GBSSA. Okay, I know from years of experience that's a ground ball is short, and if there's a runner on first, you double them off. That's a 6-4-3. You may not know it. And so the older games were primarily aimed at kids, teenagers, to become adults and play all your life and figure it out. Our ability to learn languages diminishes as we get older. And so when you came into it, what is this? With some of the things that you struggled with Strat, we're like, well, no, this is relatively easy. But again, your capacity to learn that goes through differently. It's a computer programming language. The thing with the Play.com games is that their approach is board game as opposed to sports game. And so if you've played board games, and we're talking not necessarily Monopoly in that, it comes across very different. But if you're familiar with, he's a half sad sack in History Maker Baseball. So either he is or he isn't. You roll a die or die, and it says he's not, and then you look at the chart. And so again, that's more board game like as opposed to sports game like, if that makes any sense. And I suppose for older, when we talked with Steve Tower, for people who aren't necessarily into the verbiage per se of how a card is laid out. I mean, you look at an APA card and go, what is this? I remember the first time you looked at an APA card going,
yeah, what do you do with this? Yeah.
What is this? And it's like, explain it A, B, and C. So, yeah, I think that's what the Play.com does well. And it kind of, they do a very good job of guiding you through the process of this. I know it's either A or B. And it's golf management or course management or whatever, the good hole or whatever. And then you go to that chart and roll, and it just kind of it holds your hand and goes through, and so you figure it out. And so the directions are kind of on the cards, if that makes any sense.
There's still I still got a lot of people that have questions with the Downey game, and I still gotta really sit and wrap my mind around it, because in one of the games, like the home ice advantage, there's each team has a number. It's like 1/1 or 1/-1, and what you do is when you're getting the ratings for the teams, with home ice, you would add one, and then with the away team you take away one. But if it's a negative number, you're subtracting a negative number, which is a positive number, and that trips me up all the time. It trips up everybody, and a lot of times, like, hey, I'm playing this game here, but it's you're supposed to subtract it from the right side. The right side's a negative. So does that mean I add it? Does that mean the team is good at home or worse at home? And why the heck they ever did it that way, I'll never know, because everyone is just confused. And even when someone posts an example, hey, this is the way I did it, am I right? And I'm like, I don't know. I'd have to I'd have to like sit and give it my undivided attention and go look to see what the guy did to come up with that result, because it could have been just so much more simple. It's just, instead of subtracting a negative number, just say, look, this is what it is. If it's negative, you subtract. If it's positive, you add. No subtracting the number on the right, because it could be a negative number. It just trips a lot of people up. And, once you get in the groove, you're fine. But why make it so difficult? That's the other thing I want to ask. In the instructions, sometimes people get a little too cute. And and it gets a little, like I say, you're adding and subtracting negative numbers, or you're trying to subtract and add letters, and that gets a little bit confusing. And it's just,
well, sometimes just the game is clunky. the game wasn't thought out, and games need beta testers.
Yeah.
And direction writers need beta readers to understand it.
Yeah, because again, sometimes you can't see the trees through the forest, so to speak, because you're in there,
Right.
But yeah, again, I like to see, like I said, I like to have a nice index, maybe a glossary. So if I need to find one particular rule in a game or one particular outcome in a game, bam, I want to get right there.
Yes.
And I don't want to have to go through the rules or sift through it or anything like that. I really want to just get to what it is. I want some examples in the game. And the other thing is, I like to have good examples. Like there was one game I played, I think it was a quick play game, and it said, okay, in this example, there's going to be the team is 0, so there's no adjustment. Why would you put that as an example? Because there's no adjustment. I want to see what the adjustment is. Give me a -2 or a +2 or an A or a B or whatever it was, so I can see the adjustment. We all know if it's a 0, there's no adjustment, so there's nothing to think about. But whereas, I wanted to see the results if there was an adjustment, because I want to know if I'm going up or down. And that wasn't explained in the rules. It said, okay, this team that has 0, so there's no adjustment, so their rating is still going to be X. What if there is an adjustment? Am I going up? Am I going down? Is it worse? What is good? What is bad? I mean, I also like when they say low numbers are good or high numbers are good. And I like them to be consistent with that. And there's some games that the low number is better, for fielding or whatever, but the high number is better for whatever. I'm like, well, that's confusing, because I like the consistency too, where it's like, give me all low is good or all high is good. That way I have an idea what I'm looking for here, But if that's spelled out in the rules, then maybe. But I think it still gets a little confusing sometimes. That's the big thing I'm getting at here. Nobody wants to be confused.
Exactly.
Everyone wants to play the game right, and we always hear that. I want to play the game right, and a lot of guys are like, "Here's what I do because I couldn't figure that out. Here's what I do."
And nobody plays any one game the same way. There's always a little bit of tinkering involved, whether it's intentional or I didn't understand the rule right or whatever. It's very much the Monopoly way. I was in college before I realized you don't get money for landing on free parking. You don't get what's in the middle. And so if you go one way and I go another way, and it's not official tournament rules, because a lot of these games do have tournaments, and I know that's a whole different kettle of fish. And you're right. I think we all want to play it the right way. But if you're confusing people, especially after a long day, and you're in the middle of something that you get caught in the weeds, such as multiple penalties or who has momentum for which, and it's like, screw this.
Yeah. What I like to do
on Netflix, the wife wants to watch.
Yeah. When I get a new game, what I like to do is I like to sit there and read the directions first, and I like to see how far I can get in my mind playing your game that I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. How far can I get in your directions before I got to stop and say, well, I'm lost? Or I got to say, well, maybe I need to put this on the table and play along. Because, honestly, there's been a handful of games, regular season basketball being one of them, that I've read the entire instruction and I followed all the way to the end. And I was like, I have a really good idea what I'm going to be doing here. And there's other games that you get 3 paragraphs in and you're like, okay, I'm lost. I don't even know what to do after the kickoff or something like that. Right. Now I need to put it on the table and watch it in action, and maybe it will make sense then. But just reading the directions, it's not making sense. So I need to put this on the table and see how it goes.
And the one thing also for company is a lot of them if they're making multiple games, are similar in some way. APA is cards are all, it's all cards and it's all charts. And so once you've played one APA game, you have a basic idea of how the other ones go. Obviously, soccer and baseball are not the same sport. But, once you've done one or the other, the Play.com games, they're pretty much all designed the same way. Obviously, different sports get you different ways. And so if you can figure out one, you're going to figure out the rest. And I think that kind of consistency certainly helps. because I never played the hockey game for APA, but I played the baseball game, so I have a general. I don't know the specific ins and outs and ODAI and all that stuff, but I know how the results are generated off of a board.
Yeah,
And
I have
so-
the APA baseball. I have the older version of APA baseball, and I got that to go. I could play the basic mode, but that wasn't too bad. I didn't get into any of the real technical parts of the game there, the hit and runs and all that stuff. I just kind of played basic mode, so to speak, and that wasn't too bad. But again, there's some games I played, and the thing is, though, is I like all these games too. It's just a matter of, boy, I really wish that the instructions would be laid out a little bit better. It would have made my experience a little bit better. And we've talked about first impressions, and there's been some games I've walked away from because
Yeah,
the
just
instructions
because
were.
you
Can't
absolutely.
either I can't figure out the game, I can't figure out what you want me to do in the game,
Right.
or it's just confusing and not fun. And so I think we've all walked away from games because
Well,
just
that's
not
the main
enjoying
thing.
it.
Has to be. You have to like it. It has to be entertaining. You have to get something out of it. It's it's like doing real life golf or fishing. I mean, sometimes it can just frustrate the daylights out of you because you can't find a fairway or the fish aren't biting. But you got time to yourself, and time to think or whatever. Everyone's time is precious, and so losing it on something that you can't figure out, again, you're right. That one's going to get put on the bottom of the pile and may never get played again. And it may be a genius game, but if it's not explained very well, then
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad that I did go back to APA hockey and gave it another chance and actually plowed through it and asked questions and because I am thoroughly enjoying the game, but when I look back at the road that it took me to get to this point, it's like, wow, it did not have to be this difficult. It really didn't. Even shootout hockey was fairly easy to understand. I know it's kind of a quick play game and the whole bit. I had a couple of issues with penalties, but again, what hockey game doesn't have issues with penalties?
Right.
Even football games, it is so difficult sometimes.
Oh goodness!
To write penalties into a game and have it make sense because you could just get penalty after penalty after penalty after penalty. And it's like, okay, this would never really happen, and we talked about that. We did a whole show on that when it doesn't make sense.
I've seen 1st and 30 though a few times in real life. So
oh yeah, and some things can happen. They do, but so just kind of curling it back into the directions, and you can't get there from here. I guess is what we'll call the show. Just you want to play the game, and you're willing to play the game. You're willing to put the time in to learn the game. But boy, I tell you, when you get tongue tied with bad instructions or instructions that make no sense, or boy, I read it one way and you read it another way. It really, like I say, sometimes you really do need to clarify it at the most basic level to make sense to everybody.
And sometimes game companies will make their own videos to clarify that, or you can watch the designer play their own game. That's important.
Yeah.
Because they may struggle with something that you struggled with, or they know how to handle a situation that you don't, and it's all part of customer service.
Yeah, because there's always going to be something in a game that wasn't planned for, and so you do gotta have some kind of a backup plan. Like, what do you do if this happens? I get it, because there's so many different things that happens in sports. Any sport. Like that guy. Did you see the golf last week when the guy hit it into the tree? It bounced off the road, went back up into the tree, and got stuck in the tree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are the chances that the thing lands on the ground, hits the road, and goes back up into a tree and stays there?
I've been watching golf 35 years. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I've seen him go in a tree and land in a tree and get wedged.
Yeah, right, but not bounce off the ground first and then
go up and then the wind wouldn't even knock it down. They sat there for a good 10 minutes and that thing was not coming down.
Yep.
So yeah, weird things can happen. In fact, a couple people noted maybe they need to start adding that in golf games. Ball stuck in tree is a rare play or something.
Right. And absolutely. Because anything can happen in any given sport that we haven't necessarily seen before. Like, oh yeah, that's a rare play. But I would think that if you've been having a game out for let's say 5 years, that every 5 years you sit down with someone and you read through the directions again, because chances are someone has come up with a homebrew mod that you might like better. Oh, I took this and did X with it.
Mhm.
Oh, well, yeah, I've simplified this, or a quick play chart. And then you just go through, as I said, once every 3 to 5 years and rewrite the directions. And so it all comes out fresh and with a fresh set of eyes, because anyone who's designing these games, not designing them for themselves, not necessarily doing to make themselves rich, but just so that everyone is clear and the language and whatever changes, because we won't mention the game for this one, but there was one game you bought that came with 3 sets of directions from 3 different versions of the game.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
And you were pulling the 2 hairs you have out left out because you couldn't figure out which was which, and it was things that were referred to for something that had changed. You wouldn't do that for work.
I mean, I get what they were going with. Like, here's the original game instructions for those who want to play that, and here's the newer ones that we've updated. I get it, but
there were things that were referred to in the newer instructions that were from the old instructions that were no longer relevant.
Yeah.
And again, time is precious.
Yeah, don't make your game too difficult for me. Don't make me spend too much time figuring out your game. I want to play your game. I don't want to play a game just to play the game. I want to get there and play the game. And so so there was just how some of these things have been written, and just I need the glossary. If I want to find something, how do I steal a base? I want to find that page. On a power play, what do I do? In football, on a punt, what do I do? Because everybody does a little bit different, and I just want to get there and find out what to do. And right. I don't want to have to refer back to just go here. No, tell me exactly what page it is. Highlight it for me.
If you're a designer and you're disappointed that people aren't picking up your stuff, you might have the greatest mousetrap in the world, but if the people you're buying it can't figure out how to use it, they're not going to do it, and you're not going to get any repeat sales.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, the big thing is you can't assume that everybody knows what you know, and that is the hardest thing to convey. Is if you've ever tried to explain something to somebody that has no idea what you're talking about, it is more difficult than you think, because you almost have to find some common ground and then build it from there.
Right.
And there's so many times I've tried to explain something to somebody. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, oh boy, And I've been the same way. Someone's like, okay, do this. I'm like, I have no idea. Like, where do we even start? What give me a starting point, and then we can get to where you are.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah. So, what do you guys like to see in games and games directions? I mean, do you need your handheld? Do you want your handheld? What do we got to do? I mean, I've told you what I like. I like my index at the beginning, a glossary at the back, and examples of gameplay, or even breakdown. Some games go and they break down all the possibilities of a role, and no matter what sport it is. And I like that, because here's what can happen. So now at least if I get this, then this is what I do. And this, game examples are huge. They really are. To really help you get through it. And some companies do a great job. Some companies not so much. Sometimes there's even mistakes in the directions, and you catch them. And again, they're not game enders. They're not game breakers. But it's always frustrating when you find mistakes in there. When they say, hey, it's 52, and then later on it's 53. It's like, well, which is it? You said 52, then you said 53. Or, you cut this number in half and round down. Well, if I cut this number in half, round down, then how do I ever get a 1.5?
Exactly.
I can't. It's either 1 or 2. But now you're telling me there's a 1.5. So am I rounding down or am I not? So there's I've caught a few. You've caught a few. And again, they're not disasters, but it's confusing when you read that and you're like, well, everything is telling me to do this, but the instructions are telling me to do this. So what do I do?
And in our experience, as long as you're polite and constructive with what are you talking about here, the game designers will go out of their way to help you figure it out.
Yeah. Yep, they will.
I've never run into anyone that says, tough toenails.
Yeah. Or the community. Sometimes you put something out there. The community. Right. Like, and the big one here, then we'll wrap up the show here, was somebody brought something up. I think it was on Facebook at Delphi, a new player. And I think he was playing Apple Hockey. And he says, okay, so Apple Hockey, roll 2 6-sided dice, so we're in base 6, but you add 10 on a breakaway or something like that. He goes, if you added 10, you'd actually be adding 9 to the roll or something like that.
Right, because it's base 6.
It's base 6. So if you had a 16, if you added 10, you'd be looking at 34 or something like that. And the game tells you go from 16 to 26. You're changing the first number. You're adding 1 to that first number. So a 16 is a 26, a 14 is a 24, if you follow. And that's that's a given. And it was explained in one part of the rule book, but he had a great question. He really did. And I've done this. I've overthought things. If I'm adding 10, if I'm truly adding 10 to base 6, a 26 is not 36. It's now a 44, because when I go from 26 to 36, I've added 6.
Right, because you're adding 6, which bumps you up 1 and then another 4.
Another
so
4.
Like a 1.5.
Yeah, so it's 1.5. So, but everybody, kind of jumped on this guy. It's like, oh, what are you talking about? We have all known
if you're not familiar with the game,
exactly.
How it works, sure.
Yeah. So if someone told you to add 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to flip this and that's only 6. So he brought up a great point. That it was pointed out in the rule book in one place, but I think it, again, in the beginning, they could have just said, look, every time we say add 10, this is what it's going to be. Every time we add 20, it's going to be. If you're adding 1 or 2 or 3, yeah, just go up, 1 or 2 or 3 on the small die. But there's a few things like that. So again, that's why it's really important to spell out as much as you can. Don't leave anything up for misinterpretation. Don't leave anything to chance. Don't assume.
Exactly.
Don't assume anything. And again, there's only so much hand holding you can do. But again, you want to be clear and concise with your rules. And luckily, we have a really good community out there, not only here with the show, but on Facebook and Delphi. And a lot of the players are willing to help you out as well. So that's what's good about this. So I've never run anything that's been a deal breaker yet, because I've always reached out and said, hey, I need some help with this and help with that. And people have been more than willing to help you out. Sometimes the people who did the game will help you out. I know Mike helped me out with Solitaire Pro Football. There's been a couple of situations where you score a touchdown and there's a turnover. So what do you want to do here? And sometimes there's the common sense part of it. And then there's the time, the rules that the guy says, okay, here's how it should be done. And so then you can either do the homebrew rule or you can go with what the creator of the game said. So, but anyway, so we wrap up episode 95.
Yeah, that's right.
So this has been episode 95 of the Digital to Dice podcast. Boy, 95 could have been the weather too. I guess we could have.
Especially in the summertime.
Yeah, the temperature 95. Yeah, digitaltodice.com is our website. That's where we park all the shows over on Spreaker. 978-751-DICE is the text line. 978-751-3423. Text us. Say hi. We might even read it on the show like we did today. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/group/digitaltodice. Ron, thanks for joining me today.
As always.
All righty. And do you ever ask for directions? Are you a directions asking guy?
No.
You just do it yourself?
I pretty much know where I'm going.
Sounds good.
I drive, but the wife doesn't ride with me, if you know what I mean. So,
Sounds good.
Follow the green line. No, I don't want to.
All right, we'll see everybody later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.